Adam Soos here for Rebel News. Alberta's Bill 20, the Municipal Affairs Amendment Act, has found itself at the center of some controversy. Now, the bill in question deals with a number of municipal affairs ranging from the creation of municipal political parties, financing for municipal campaigns, as well as efforts to get affordable housing built, a number of things, all of which we are sure to discuss in future reports. But the most sort of contentious component is the component of Bill 20 which affirms or asserts the right of the province to remove councils or strike down bylaws as they deem fit where appropriate. This has understandably garnered some contention and concern from folks, whether it be the opposition or from conservatives concerned about government overreach that may result as a consequence of Bill 20 should it be implemented as it stands today. Well, in order to break down Bill 20 to address some of the concerns and to set the facts straight, I was very happy to be joined by Alberta's Municipal Affairs Minister, Rick McIver.
Yeah, we're actually very consistent here because we do tell the federal government to stay out of municipalities and with the phrase "stay in your lane." And of course, when we and here's the difference: under the Constitution of Canada, municipalities are 100% the jurisdiction of provincial governments.
Right.
So when we tell the feds to stay out of municipalities, we're telling them to stay out of our exclusive jurisdiction. When we, quote, interfere or participate in things that municipalities do, we're still in our exclusive jurisdiction. In other words, our backyard, not theirs. Yeah, it's not. Sure. It's not inconsistent at all. It's actually what's consistent is we're saying honor the Constitution as it's written and stop playing games with it.
Definitely. And I think people are sort of struggling with that understanding. They don't establish that divide. Now, the government of Alberta has managed to sort of intercede on some municipal affairs in the past. You tweeted recently that non-citizens wouldn't be allowed to vote, for example. We saw sheriffs sort of involved in assisting law enforcement here in Calgary. What does Bill 20 add or amend in terms of the province's power, or is it simply affirming the rights that exist? What changes with Bill 20?
Well, the phrase is kind of irritating because the media people that use it should know better. Some have used the phrase sweeping new powers, but in fact, all the powers that we have are sweeping and none of them are new. Any power that we've had essentially since Alberta became a province in 1905. The couple things that Bill 20 does do, it provides an expedited process in order to exercise the powers that we have already had. And I know they say, well, you couldn't have fired MLAs before, councillors before. We just did. A municipality here 6 or 8 months ago. So that's clearly not a new power. And they say, well, you can't change bylaws or municipalities. Well, we've done that a couple times, too. There's a bill before the House right now to change the city of Calgary's ridiculously high taxes on electricity. Yeah. And a couple of years towards the end of the main part of COVID, Edmonton decided after our government got rid of the mask bylaws, the mask mandate, if you will, the city of Edmonton decided that they were going to step in and try to be the health ministry and have their own mask mandate. And we actually had to go into the legislature and pass a law to overturn that. So
where does the balance come in between deciding, hey, at the next election, people can correct this on their own, that sort of democratic process, and something being so egregious that the province has to step in? How is that decision rendered?
It has to be on a case-by-case basis. Let me just say this. It should always be the exception when you fire a councillor. Right. Or dismiss a councillor. And I would hope it will always be the exception when you overturn a municipal bylaw. Municipalities know what their authority is. They know what they're allowed to do, what they're not allowed to do. They know when they're flying straight into the face of the provincial government policy. And in the most vast majority of places, municipal councillors duly elected are responsible. They're smart people. They care about their municipality. They care about Alberta. They care about Canada. They make good decisions. That is the norm. That's what we prefer. But sometimes one or more people go against the legislation and absolutely refuse to abide by the legislation. So we do need the ability, and when those times crop up, to say, okay, well, listen, give you notice that you're offside with the legislation and you need to comply with it. And sometimes they say, sure, I'll do my best, which is great. And other times they say, you can't make me. So when that happens, we need the ability to make it stop.
Now, is there any concern with sort of implementing these new expediency measures to powers that already exist, though, but that, let's say, an NDP government is in again down the line, that they then use it to enforce their ideologies? Are there safeguards against that?
Well, no, there isn't. Listen, anybody who's in government has the same power we do. They could either use the legislation that we pass, or they could pass exactly the same legislation, or they could pass stronger legislation. I mean, that's, once you're in government, you're in government. So having to protect against the NDP on this is it's a non-legitimate argument, because the NDP is actually in government. Anything we could do, they could do that now, they could do then. But let me also say, far be it for me, generally speaking, to defend the NDP. However, for the same reason that we won't abuse the privilege, I don't think they will either.
Now, the city of Calgary, you likely heard about the rezoning vote, 9-6. Some of the factors sort of being discussed by Councillor Dan McLean, as well as others, are sort of backdoor federal funding deals tied into this rezoning. Is that the type of thing? I know you said you have to assess it on a case-by-case basis. Is that the kind of thing that steps to the extent where there may be provincial intervention, or is that an electoral matter? I'm just struggling to determine when the government would be involved.
In my mind, there's kind of two pieces, if you don't mind, Adam, to your question. The first is, that's the reason for not Bill 20, but Bill 18. So the federal government would no longer be able to come in and try to cut a side deal with municipalities. Right now they can, but Bill 18, if it's passed, will put a stop to that. The second piece is, will we overturn the zoning bylaw? Well, let me be clear to you and your viewers. We don't need Bill 20. The one authority that has existed since 1995 is for the government of Alberta to overturn any land use and rezoning bylaw in any municipality in Alberta instantly and without limitation. And that has been used, wait for it, exactly 0 times. So even without Bill 20, that we could do now. But I would say that zoning, planning, that kind of stuff is one of the primary municipal responsibilities. And we would be very reticent to overturn even a bad decision like that one.
Right.
So, I think the council made the decision, council passed it, council will have to live by it and explain that to their voters next election. And we'll see how that goes for them, whether it goes well or poorly.
And on that note, and I know you have a statement about this, but I'm asked about this quite frequently, with the instance with the Chestermere City Council and the mayor there. If you could just, I know some of those matters are sort of before the courts and being discussed, but could you just discuss some of the measures before that final action was taking place? Like, this can't just happen overnight. There's usually there's usually events leading up to a council being removed.
You know what? And I'm not going to get into it for exactly the reason you said, because it could still be before the courts. However, if you go on the government's website, alberta.ca/Chestermere, you will see a full rundown of all the efforts that we made before the decision of dismissal was. And then when you'll also be able to see the Deloitte audited report on the financial condition, if you will, of the municipality. And that should tell people everything they need to know. And in terms of the expediency, I think the only thing I can comment is just that I don't remember exactly how many days it is, but it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 1.5 years to get the process completed that led to the dismissal in Chestermere. And that's all doing and again, that's whatever the dates are, I don't remember how many days are.
Of course, no.
But in the rough neighborhood, 1.5 years. Here's what I can guarantee anybody watching here is you're not going to see 20 people get fired the day after the bill passes. You're not going to see 20 bylaws overturned the day after the bill passes. It's not going to happen. Albertans want to have a duly elected municipal council. They want that duly elected municipal council, their decisions to be respected as long as it's within the boundaries of the law. And that's how we feel about it too. These powers that we already have that we're creating an expedited path to is we hope never to use them, and if it becomes necessary, we hope rarely to use them. I just don't think that nobody, certainly not me, certainly not the premier, nobody wants to fire 20 or 40 or even one municipal duly elected councillor as a result of just passing the legislation. That is reserved for when an extremely unusual thing happens, when somebody doesn't obey the law and they refuse and get a chance to correct the behavior and absolutely refuse on a continual basis to do it. That's what leads to dismissal of a councillor.
There you have it. Alberta's Minister of Municipal Affairs, Rick McIver. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And for everyone at home, I want to thank you all so much for tuning in. For Rebel News, I'm Adam Soos. While concern over government overreach is incredibly important, it doesn't take a municipal affairs minister to see that major cities in Canada are in trouble. From open drug use to rampant crime, something clearly needs to change. If you agree, I'm encouraging you to sign our petition at fixourcities.com.